But we're basically talking about if nobody played this weekend, the 4 would remain the 4. But that's not the case. The 4 are going to play. So let's just say, call it TCU, call it USC, slip up. All right, because I think even if Michigan lost in a close game, they probably have an argument to still get into the playoff. But if SC, for argument's sake, because they have 1 loss, if they end up with 2 and they lose another 1-point thriller game to Utah, should we just eliminate a 2-loss team from the playoff and insert in Ohio State because they have 1 loss? Or do we need to recognize, like, hey, they got rolled at home? Facts. And SC's got 2 tight losses against a team that at least is widely respected around the country over recent years in Utah. So, George, Chris Paul, and then weigh in on 2 loss, 1 loss, 4 or 5.
Well, so one, I apologize, fellas. We got to tighten some things up over here. I thought we take pride in that. Chris Paul, we just basically watched that championship game, and he watched it like a football player. He said he played quarterback in high school and always wanted to play it, but basketball and God had another plan. 1 loss, 2 loss. So first of all, Ohio State has won every game this season by double digits until they hit Michigan. Double digits. Their very best player, Smith and Jigba, went out since game 1. He only played 1 other game. And then Alabama lost on 2 expiring plays.
Yeah.
That's it. 2 expiring plays. So just as you all know how that ladder goes, USC is hanging. Should they slip, they are going to fall behind one or both of those 2 teams. And I'm curious, does TCU have that same effect, or do they have a little cushion because they're coming undefeated?
I think a 1 loss TCU falls victim just like everybody else.
So
they lose. I think they're out.
So there is a scenario that we've been talking about all year. You could have 2 SEC and 2 Big Ten teams in this.
Okay,
go ahead. Sorry.
Let's just talk about this, and let's do what the committee's supposed to do, right? Again, to set the stage. Yep. If you haven't done it, I'd recommend you guys to do it. You can apply and go down and do a mock selection committee as part of the media. Excuse me, it's awesome, and they're very clear. Like, this year is about this year. Now, we're all human beings, and we know that historicals are historicals. But to George's point, 2 cliffhanger losses from Alabama. They also had a ugly win against A&M. Texas, call it what you want. Like, they won. A challenging place in the road, not taking anything away from them, but starting quarterback in Texas went out in the game. Ole Miss just lost to Mike Leach and Mississippi State, which was a quality 8-4 team. I think they're ranked now in the top 25 at 24. But it's not as though they have been, like, to George's point on Ohio State, like, rolling. So I think we have to talk about them in the context of, like, because they're not playing and because they're sitting on the outside in their last 3 weeks. It was Austin Peay, Auburn with an interim coach, and nobody, versus, well, what if it's a 1-point loss again and SC has 2 1-point losses at 4? Let's just say TCU has a tight loss to a team they've already beat once in number 10 Kansas State. If we take out historicals and just look at, like, facts, I don't see Alabama jumping that. Am I crazy?
I think what the committee, even us as extensions of the committee, if Alabama had TCU's record, would they have 2 losses?
They might. It's not like the Big 12's trash this year. Like, I think people look at it now and stronger than you think.
I don't think they're trash at all, and I agree with you 100%. Wildly competitive, very entertaining. They do not have 2 losses. Tennessee was a juggernaut, and they beat Alabama at home on a field goal with time expiring.
Yeah,
that's it. LSU had, to go for 2 as time expired, and they got them.
Epic. So to that point, if SC loses on a 2-point conversion on the road at Utah, in a night where they honored the 2 men that we toasted earlier. They had their faces on the helmets. It was crazy emotion.
That was beautiful.
I'm just saying, like, what if that's the case again? They lose on last-second field goal, 2-point play, final drive. Like, if we have that, should a team be penalized because they earned the right to go to their title game versus a team that didn't?
I don't know if it's a penalized.
And you only had 8 conference games, and Austin Peay was one of your last 2 opponents?
That's also fair, but I don't know if that's so much penalizing them. And Darien, you could speak to it.
I'm
I just think
I'm crafting my statements here.
I just think point blank, TCU and USC are in positions where they must run it out.
So
I don't think they have grace. I don't think they have any. I don't think they have any more strikeouts. And you got two monsters right behind you. You have it in your control. You either do it or you don't. Because I think once you start weighing schedules, games, wins, quality of losses, etc.,
it's gonna get political.
Yeah, and the politics are not good for those two.
Look, the blessing to me for both of those programs right now is the ball is in your court. There's no more wishing, waiting, and no more hypotheticals. Hey, look, if you win, you stay in. Now, if you lose,
Correct.
it could go either way. There are arguments on both sides because obviously, I think Yogi, you're a great advocate for the underdogs in these cases. But I do think these blue bloods of the college football playoffs of the last 9 years, they do just looking at them like people are going to see the attractiveness of putting Ohio State back in, putting Bama back in. And so I just think right now, the best thing for both those programs, like it will get really interesting if they lose, but I think if they win, which is like I feel they both can win their conference games, they win, they're in. Yeah. And that's the good part because I didn't think it was going to come. I thought it was going to be more controversial at this moment than it is right now. The top 4 teams, if you win, there's no like. That's why before you got back on, George, I was just telling like in years past, the disparity between like the 3 and 6 has been so heavy that you really can switch out you really can have a strong argument. And whoever was at 5, you really felt bad they got left out. This year, I feel like it's pretty clear cut. Like if the top 4 teams win their games, like they get in. There's no really like, oh man, they did wrong or they. No, it's pretty like, nah, you lost, you fumbled the bag this year, and it just is what it is. These teams win, they're undefeated. SC's on a crazy run. Caleb Williams will win the Heisman. It's like those 4 teams are getting in.
Yeah.
So,
I think
go ahead.
It's just interesting. So let me just paint like a resume for you guys. And I'm not trying to be the argumentative SC guy. I just want to paint the picture, right? Let's like USC and Ohio State. Let's just imagine SC loses a tight game again. Okay. Ohio State's solid win in the opener against Notre Dame. Everybody's opener is a challenge. USC, really impressive win in the finale, I think, against Notre Dame team that was peaking. We know what happened to Notre Dame after the Ohio State game. Call it a hangover, call what you want. Let's just look at those facts. Ohio State, ranked win over Penn State on the road. Big props. That place is awesome. Hard to get a win, etc. SC, now they beat Oregon State, who, George, you know, I've been on the Oregon State train all season long, number 15. And I'm going to get to their ranking here in a minute. So you got ranked wins, right? You got impressive wins. You got a 1-point loss to a ranked Utah, who's now sitting at 11. And you got a beatdown against Michigan, to be fair. That's what it was. It was physically a Michigan win all day long. And Ohio State plays one less game. So to me, if like SC loses a tight one by 1, and you put those things side by side, I'm just curious where the committee will go. Got number 1 offense in America with the best player in the country, number 1 receiving in the conversation of the receiver, whether you want to go Jackson or Jordan Addison, like they're ballers all over the field for both of these teams. But I'd be curious what would be said if it was another really tight loss, but in a title game versus the team that's watching the title game at home.